panelists in the studio. I start with Mr. Riti Bakari Yusuf, who's at CCOG Lagos World Media. Good morning, Mr. Riti.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I like Mr. Riti this morning. It's cool.
Okay.
And then we'll have Waji. Waji, welcome.
Morning, Valentine, and good morning, Lagos.
Good morning. You can find Waji up on the socials at the Corporate MC. That's corporate with a K. And Tunde, good morning, Tunde Okufi.
Good morning, Valentine.
Good morning. Tunde is at Big Cuffs, Lagos. Starting the story lineup this morning is from the Guardian newspaper with the headline, Rivers Government Army Bika over Militia Training Camp. In this story, Tunde, the report has it that the army swooped in on a group that were training in military style. They found them around Noagbam in Rivers State, Thai local government area, close to the NYC orientation camp. They rounded them up, arrested some of them. And then in reaction, quick reaction, the Rivers State government, the governor and Commissioner for Information and Communications, Imalka, said that really that this is biased, it's politicized, and it's not what it seems. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so I mean, initial reactions when you look at it would be like, is the Nigerian army, this discredited that a training camp or an illegal, from their perspective, training camp to be discovered and state officials will say, oh, this is, it's wrong, it's politically motivated. But then when you get into the detail of it a bit more, the state governments, the government of Rivers, the argument is, look, if you from Lagos to Zamfara, a bunch of states, Imo and Edo, all have similar militia groups to help keep the peace within the state. And then you start to see that point. But the argument there, them calling the military, because they go on to say the military is now, it's not a professional body, it's politicized, it's for political purposes. But that would be my exact same argument to them for these various militia groups. The number of militia groups we have in the country make me very uncomfortable.
Yes, because you wonder how much control you have over
Absolutely.
them. How these things are conducted, the practice, the training, and really the purpose of that.
Absolutely, they're under the direct control of the state governments that institute them and say that they are for keeping the peace. Yes, I presume they keep the peace, but come time for elections, we all know how these guys are deployed, right? So I presume the state looks at each state that has its own militia group, so to say, probably looks at it as some countermeasure to, especially when if they're in opposition to the party that's in the center. Obviously, look at it as their counterbalance to, the might of the military or the police force that's deployed during elections. But the truth is, both sides. I'd like to argue more that the militias are for political reasons.
Yes, because
our military is a professional military.
How do you explain the existence of such groups? They say it's to assist in the fight against insecurity in River State. What's the work? What's the job of the police?
What's the job of the police? Absolutely. And even if they claim they were considered by an act of parliament, which parliament and which act?
Right.
It's not mentioned. And they clearly say that they communicated with the armed forces HQ, telling them what they wanted to do, and they didn't hear back. That means to me that you didn't get clearance, I presume.
Exactly. But yet they went ahead. Thank you, Tunde, for that. And moving on now to Premium Times. Premium Times has this headline: United States government places order for Nigeria Super Tucano aircraft. We all recall how that drama ensued in the House, how President Buhari made approval for a sum of $469.4 million US to be transferred to the United States government for the purpose of purchasing 12 Tucano aircrafts, and how the Senate really clamped back on that and said that was without approval. The president explained it away and said he anticipated the approval of the Senate, which is why he authorized for that payment to be made. Well, the United States has said that the aircraft, they've made orders for that the company is going to be taking care of making this possible, providing the aircraft, and the assembly will be in Jacksonville, Florida. Waji, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, yes, so going back to the point you made on Valentine, excuse me, where Buhari went ahead and got or granted anticipatory approval, that's in the sense of doing things in the national interest and using your executive powers, and then the Senate and the House and everybody else complaining that this falls under the purview of how we normally do this kind of business. But leaving that aside, this conversation has been going on for quite a while now. I think this is 2 years now that we've been trying to get the Super Tucanos into Nigeria. For those who don't know, the Super Tucanos are the light aircrafts used to combat insurgencies in highly dense forest areas. So it has the ability to move in, fly low, detect radar and things like that, or be undetectable to radar, etc., etc. So it's quite a phenomenal piece of work in terms of aeronautical engineering. But the irony now becomes the conversation around how we are conducting business. Now, this has been awarded to the Sierra Nevada Corporation, which is an American company, aerospace contractor.
Okay.
And the clause is considered to be an undefinitized contract action, which is UCA, which pretty much, if you go into the article, indicates that the contract involved terms where specifications, price are not agreed before the work commences. Okay, so now when you now go back to the argument regarding how much money has been dispersed, you see a situation where it's been a conversation of the contract being awarded for 344 million, but then Buhari claimed that we have paid 469 million
In excess.
Right? So you now go back to that. So that buffer is there because of things like what happens if Buhari doesn't return to government, or you have a new administration come in and they now begin to cancel that contract. So people need to understand why those things occur with regards to the space and with regards to the discrepancies with the amount of money that has been transferred versus the amount of money with the contract.
Perhaps that makes sense of it. Really,
it makes perfect sense. But the issue is that these kind of conversations, especially back in April, when Buhari first came out to talk about it, could have been easily just disseminated to the legislature.
Yes.
So at least they know and understand that this is what's going on, that is for security purposes, etc., etc. Now the challenge is, because we've deliberated for 2 years, we've lost time. Now the expected date, which is what the corporation is saying, is going to be 2024, which is 5 years from now.
That's another delay.
In order for them to get the amount that we want done. But somebody's now coming out to say that it'll be ready next year, which is not possible unless you're now telling us that the manufacturing of the aircrafts already happened before this particular announcement was made. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
But either way, this is what happens when you're not a master of your own communication. This is what happens when you don't control narratives. These things can be easily done if you are open, if you are transparent, and if you communicate with individuals. And this is always a challenge that we have seen with this particular administration.
Yeah.
These are things that we need, especially in lieu of all the situations that we're seeing, the situations where Boko Haram are now getting a lot more tech savvy with regards to how they're conducting their operations,
which we'll talk about
shortly. But we need to also get ahead of the curve and speed these things up so we can get the necessary technology, willpower, and also machines in place to be able to handle this insurgency.
It's just interesting to see how miscommunication costs us a lot of time, and it just leads us to misconstrue certain details.
There you go.
We'll move on now to that's actually Daily Times for this next one. Mob kills FSARS operative who shot last mile official. That happened. The news hit the headlines yesterday when we saw that. But I deliberately did not pick up the news because it lacked detail. But today we're seeing that an operative of the Federal Anti-Robbery Squad, FSARS, Olakunle Olonade, accused of killing an official, Rotimi Ademo, has been who arrested him for traffic violations, has died after he was bit by a mob. He was bit down, and they reacted very quickly because they say a lot of people were crowded around the area when this happened. Ms. Iriti, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm not surprised this isn't, we don't read this more often because, the forces in Nigeria are forever trying to pull one over the other, aren't they? They don't seem to have respect for each other's uniform or positions for that matter. And they're actually quite disgraceful, often in public, more so than even when they're at their barracks. So Olonade, who was driving Toyota Highlander SUV, contravened the traffic law. The last mile official stopped him, and an argument ensued, and Olonade pulled out his gun and shot the last mile officer to death. Literally
shot him in the head.
Killed him. Killed him there and then.
So the last mile officer died?
Yes, killed him there and then. And of course, a mob ensued. And they started, jungle justice, applying jungle justice to the SARS official, who later subsequently also died in hospital. He actually died from his injuries. Now, what's interesting here, and this is what I do like, is the CP for Lagos has directed that the late Inspector Olakunle Olonade be tried posthumously in orderly room and be recommended for dismissal from the force. That is what is important in this story.
Because that will affect payouts.
Exactly. And it would also set an example for those,
Yes, as a
going forward.
deterrent.
A deterrent. Thank you for going forward. So that's
Very
what's
smart.
that. Yeah, I like the fact. I mean, they actually checked the gun and they checked the serial number, and they found
It
that
tallied.
it
Yes.
belonged. It was his that was used. Yeah.
Thank you
So
so much.
impressive stuff. The way they've resolved it. Yes.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Riti. We'll move on now to this next story from Premium Times newspaper. I'll come to you, Waji, for this story. It's Boko Haram using drones, foreign fighters against Nigerian troops. And this is a very close link in the details to the last story we treated. We see that the sudden rise in Boko Haram attacks over the last 3 months has forced the Nigerian military to fine-tune their counter-insurgency operations in the war-ravaged northeast. The Nigeria's Chief of Army Staff, Tukur Buratai, revealed this on Wednesday, saying that the terrorists now use drones and foreign fighters in their operations. What are your thoughts, Waji?
Well, for those who were listening earlier on Tech Friday, this was somewhat talked on.
Yes,
There's an interesting comment that came towards the end where an individual said that for those who quote Boko Haram as Western education being sacrilege, it's absolutely amazing that you're using a lot of Western educated technology to now begin to further your cause. And I just absolutely love that because it speaks to the situation that we're in now. But I must give a big shout out to Premium Times. They are absolutely sensational when it comes to reporting. They really, really get into the weeds of making sure that they tell a very objective and well-detailed story. And just big shout out to them and continue to do your very responsible journalism. But as we jump into the story,
Most of them were trained by Next.
Ah,
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Shout out to them.
All right, fantastic. All right, so when you now begin to look at this is worrying for me because I still, even from a philosophical point of view, do not understand the purpose of Boko Haram. Over the number of the very little years that I've had on this planet, I have studied a lot of these kind of insurgency groups to get an understanding of what their philosophies are, what they're vying for, what they're trying to now begin to do. When you look at the PLO or Hezbollah or Hamas or institutions
Even the
like
IRA.
that, or even the IRA, thank you very much, you get an understanding of what their ethos is. I don't actually quite get what Boko Haram's ethos is at all. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So when they now begin to shore up with technology and drones, what are you using the drones for? To spy on the Nigerian military to get a sense of what they are doing in order to do what?
Who's funding them?
I'm not even trying to get there yet. I want to just focus on what your purpose is, what you're trying to do. At least that way we can maybe begin to have some conversations, because once you philosophically understand somebody's point regarding the things that cause them to do what they do, then maybe we can begin to have a better understanding. But that alone, who knows? Now when you go to the point about funding, where they're getting this money from, that's a whole other conversation, and I don't think we have enough time or freshly pressed to do that. But it is worrying that it's something that's happening. But at the same time, if it's information that we are getting, then that should now further speed us up, going back to the earlier story we covered with regards to the Super Tucanos and everything else, to make sure we stop dilly-dallying when it comes to these processes and these bureaucratic red tape of acquiring the necessary technology that we need to fight this insurgency.
Right.
You see them ramping up their special services, you need to ramp up your special services in order for you to combat them. The last thing you don't want to do is lose on the technological front with people who are ready to die. Okay? So you need to be very, very careful with that. If you have this information, move quickly, get to speed on it, and let's take them out. This has been going on, Val, for almost 10 years.
I know.
Not just this new spat. This thing's going back as far back as 2009.
Yes.
So this
What's
is,
that? The use of drones
this is
or
this
the Boko Haram?
thing.
Oh yes,
It's getting
you know
quite
my
ridiculous.
question to you though, very quickly, Val. I know we need to rush. Is remember the story that we did on this show a few weeks ago, actually, where the government said they wanted to ban drones?
Yes, exactly. Thank you very
thank
much.
you so
Fantastic.
much, because that was the
actually
link I
wanted
was going to, and then
Oh no. So they're going to use this now, and that's the case. Val, done. So there's no further conversation. Anybody who wants to now fly a drone anywhere, please be careful. I will strongly advise you go to whatever regulatory authority it is to get permission and understand, because the last thing you want is to be accused of any links to Boko Haram because you're using a drone to shoot a music video
That's
or a
right.
commercial.
And
so Nigerians, please, I beg you, you know how people are. We literally take everything to 100 every single day. So please
So
be
we
very
need to be
careful
careful.
before you fly any drone,
For the
because a
drones.
happy law enforcement officer will use that opportunity to now just get hype.
I remember just last week we talked about, it was just early this week where we talked about the cyber crimes law with the forwarded
Exactly.
messages on the
And it
messaging
just
app,
misinformation.
spreading fake news. And
Yeah, so now be scared, okay? So I'm not flying any drones, and if you're flying drones around me, I'm
please
taking off.
pack it Thank you, PC.
Thank you, Val.
Thank you. Now, moving on to Premium Times. Actually, staying with the Premium Times for this next story. 62 women vie for elective positions in Kano, and this is according to INEC, revealing the details. The INEC resident electoral commissioner in the state, Riskuya Shehu, said that the 62 women, he disclosed this in an interview with the news agency of Nigeria, saying the commission received the nominations of the candidates from different political parties in the state. Mr. Risi, are you happy about this?
Well,
Excited?
yes. Well, you would naturally. Yes. So you see 62 females, you're like, oh, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. And then you go, and then you go further down.
It's actually not a lot at all.
It's not a lot at all. Thank you.
Because they said the commissioner.
Sorry. No, you missed what was going on there.
missed it,
You
right?
missed it. That's why you're imitating me.
Yeah, I heard it.
And totally.
Please go on.
And that was really brilliant. Yeah, so you realize it's not a lot at all because, so you have out of, 74 candidates
yeah.
for commissioners, 32 from 32 political parties. Only 2 were females, okay? You go further down, House of Rep, 17 were females out of 384 males. You go further down and, House of Senate, just the whole thing. So you don't get excited. And there's a quote here, which I do like. It says here, look, the issue of how the US campaigns and Congress is impacted on the conduct, management and funding of the party's primaries in Nigeria and the participation of women should be left to the political parties as they're in the right position to comment on the matter. And this is very, very true. I keep saying, look, let's be frank with each other. In fact, it's so funny that I was having this conversation. I'll be very quick again with my girlfriend just last night. It isn't that we need 300 new parties. It isn't that we need more political parties. It isn't that we need different colored political parties. Look at the US of A. They have 2 main political parties. But what happened with the midterms? What happened is those political parties were basically, as you say, invaded by new blood.
Yes.
Women,
Yes.
young people.
Who were tired of sitting on the
what do you call
sidelines.
them over there? Immigrants
Yes.
and
All sorts.
all sorts.
Yes.
And that's
People
what
with
we need
different
to do.
sexual
It's
orientations,
not
everything.
that exactly. It's not that we need new parties, Nigeria. It's not that you need a bill that tells you you're now old enough to run. No, what you need to do is let's try and take over the current 2 political parties that are there.
Fresh
They
ideas.
need new blood.
Yes.
They need. Don't take. Prize it. Go and check what I mean by prize. When they say prize, you prize something from someone else and you snatch it. So go in there and invade. That's what needs to happen. So we need more women in this party, PDP, APC, it's fine. Let's just go in there and take over.
and all the other
And by
parties.
taking over, in fact, if you wanted to have an ideology, if there are much more of us than there are of them, they will have no choice. That's what needs to happen. So let's go there and invade them, women.
Thank you very much, and I especially love the fact that it's not gender sensitive for you. It's just about fresh ideas,
Absolutely.
fresh blood,
Absolutely.
new concepts. Thank you very much, Mr. Riti. Moving on now to Guardian newspaper for this next story. Waji, I'll come to you with this. Presidential candidates signed peace pact ahead of the 2019 poll. They said they attended ahead of the general elections, really, to ensure rancor-free polls at a one-day conference under the auspices of National Peace Committee that was chaired by the former head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, who's retired. The presidential candidates resolved to adopt the same principles that guided the success of the 2015 elections and therefore commit themselves to run issue-based campaigns on national, state, and local government levels. But curiously, the flag bearers for the presidential polls for PDP and APC were absent.
Of course they were. And this is just what my issue is. As we go into this campaign season, we know what happens. I know this is my 3rd or thereabout, second or 3rd political campaign season in Nigeria, and I'm always sad when people have to lose their lives in the names of campaigning for the highest office in the land, and it's always quite shameful and embarrassing. So I'm sorry, Val, for me it's not enough that they're signing these peace pacts and everything else. I need these individuals to be absolutely impeccable with their words.
Yes.
I need them to be held accountable for the things that they say, for the violence that they incite, for the things that they infer, for the call to actions that they infer in some kind of sycophantic manner that now elucidates people to now be violent. They need to be held accountable
Beautiful
for the
word,
lives,
elucidates.
the lives that people are losing as a result of the things that come out of their mouth. So please beyond signing your peace pacts, be absolutely impeccable with the things that you say. The minute you sense that people are going to be violent, call them out. Stop it. You have the power because you are an individual that's vying for that position. Nobody, I repeat, nobody's life is worth you going for any office at all. This is a very serious matter, and Nigerians need to be held accountable for this level of responsibility.
Very well said, Waji. But aren't you worried, about the absence of these two major parties who naturally, well, not right naturally, by history, we've seen that they've been held responsible for most violence-related campaigns.
That's my point. It's not about the peace pact. I could care less about you signing a piece of paper to say that we're going to be peaceful. I need you to be more actionable about being peaceful.
Yes.
So for me, whether you're there or not is inconsequential if you're not going to be impeccable with your words. So I'd rather have you as the two flag bearers, as the two main people running for office, to be a bit more careful with the things you say versus signing a piece of paper saying that you're going to be peaceful. Completely irrelevant if you're not going to do it. So whether they showed up or not, I don't care. As long as they maintain peace and order in this country and nobody has to lose their life because you're vying for position, then I'm all good with that.
Thank you very much. Dio here sent in a message on WhatsApp saying, what is unimpressive is the mobs are not being prosecuted. And that's talking about the River State.
How do you
story.
prosecute a mob?
I know. Who's the mob? I was talking about the Lagos State incident with the FSARS and the traffic officer last month. Now, Fajo sent in this one. It says, imagine the terrorists using drones. What does our military body use? Well, for your information, this might not be said on air, but know this. All right, thank you very much. I'll read the message much later. Zainab says, SARS officials are usually very arrogant. I live on the same street with one of them. He shoots his pistol randomly, sometimes in the dead of the night. Maybe
How
he
irresponsible.
was trying to let you know there's security personnel around, maybe.
Not.
That's on the side. Niger Baker from Ogudu sent this one. It says, the impunity of the SARS guys has now come to a head. Now they're turning against the other security agencies. Our recruitment into security services need to be overhauled. We cannot take in the dredges of society or the dregs of society into the forces and expect good behavior. Imagine giving a gun to an ex-area boy. Is the question he ends with. Let's move on to this next story, talking about representatives probing the PENCOM for alleged illegal actions. That's from New Telegraph. Tunde, let's go into this story because we see that the PENCOM boss, she made some appointments that they called unlawful and illegal and working against provisions and use of public funds. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, and I think this stems out of a petition that was written to the EFCC by members. Well, I forget what they call themselves now. They formed a union or something. But this interestingly came from within PENCOM itself. It came from, as they like to describe themselves, concerned members of staff.
Yes, from National Pension Commission.
Yeah, from within the National Pension Commission, exactly. And the point being is they wrote this thing to the EFCC, this petition to the EFCC, saying that recall that there was a change of management in 2017, and instead of maybe appointing, maybe going through a process to appoint new people and have them ratified and verified, which is the House of Representatives issue, that they should go through purpose and everyone should be ratified by the Senate. The petition goes on to say that the most senior people the instruction that the most senior people were to take over an acting position. Now here is the argument against the lady, that first of all the current DG, that she was due to retire in 2016.
Yes.
So that sort of puts you can't lead an organization where if there's any sense of the word I'm looking for is not credibility, but that thing where if the people you're supposed to lead don't
Trust?
It's not even trust. It's okay. So she was supposed to have retired already. Now she's leading them. So and she's leading in an acting capacity because management was told to change. Anyway, so that's one issue. The second issue is that they brought forward is one of competence, which is why they say the commission has gone down the route that it's gone down. They say her experience has been in procurement and then more recently in CSR, and they've accused her of all sorts of layers of mismanagement, nepotism, not going through the right process for procurement, increasing benefits for certain cadres of in a management team by 300%, not getting approval for expenditure. So a bunch of things. There's a whirlwind of allegations building up against the DG. So I guess all of that needs to be looked into. The lawmakers have an oversight function, so they should do that, and we should stop really stop playing politics with these things. Pensions are a very important. What you see why people don't have much confidence in our pensions
The pensions
schemes,
board.
when the regulator, so to say, has all sorts of issues and issues like this, but they should resolve it and sort it out soon. It's too important to an agency to have these kind of things lingering, especially as it relates with the leadership.
Thank you very much, Tunde, for that. Now, Premium Times newspaper is next with a story: ICPC arrests fake ex-Nigeria Airways worker. And Mr. Riti, in this story, the details reveal that the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission have arrested one Emmanuel Ineji for falsely claiming to be a former employee of the defunct Nigeria Airways. He said he was the head and operations manager of the airways in Ghana, but
Yes.
there's apparently no office there.
Well, yes, he's a liar, and he's not a very good liar either, is he? Silly man,
Not doing his
yes.
research, maybe.
Silly man. I mean, what research? I mean, just disgraceful. I like the fact that they're verifying. I'd like to know how they're verifying, actually, because I don't imagine they still have the disc with all the staff names from
Yes.
way back then.
The floppy disk.
The floppy disk. Thank you. Remember the days of floppy disk? Yes.
You see, when they,
Yes.
when they were paying salaries for the arrears, the old salaries of defunct Nigeria Airways, they discovered, they asked them to, in the verification process, present their documents. He presented his own
Yeah,
verification.
but that's what I'm saying. No, what I'm saying is, it would be interesting to know
Yeah.
if they still have the floppy disk, and if they were able
If
to
I see
grab
one, I'll
the
curate it.
data, if they were able to grab the data out of the floppy disk, because how exactly are they verifying? I really have to ask, and I put it to you that it's all manual, which is why this guy thought he could get away with this.
Yes.
He did claim that all his documents were burnt in an incident during the Zango Kataf uprising
Wow.
in 1993. Does anybody know
Sorry,
about
what
that?
year?
Hold on, though. Has he confessed to forging?
Well,
data
this is
from-
no. That's what I'm saying. So it's still alleged. It's a good point you make. So he said all his documents were lost during the Zango Kataf uprising in 1993 at Malali, Kaduna State. And I don't know what that is. I don't know. Does anybody know? Please text us if you do. And yeah, so they're still trying to verify. He also claimed that there's a Mr. Ajayi, a staff of the Nigerian Airways Union, who issued him the verification number on the list, which they're saying the staff number he has is incorrect. So
Because the staff number he has belongs to someone else.
yeah, so they're gonna continue to investigate. Right now, he's in jail pending conclusion. It would be nice to see the end of this. Like I said, how are they verifying? It's probably because they're using
Season paper.
yes.
So this the newspaper is next. Today, I'll leave you with this story. Now, NCC sets 2020 for 5G rollout in country. Bear in mind, this is existing as we speak in other countries. What does that have to take us so long?
Exist in other countries mostly as pilots. Or
Pilots,
experiments.
yes, pilot
So
versions.
most countries are in the process of procurement, and I'll get to that later. So 5G goes beyond mobile connectivity. It's for IoT, the Internet of Things, or in lay terms, interconnected devices.
Okay.
So think self-driving cars. Think smart homes.
Even for the
energy
mobile phones,
efficiency and all of that.
eSIMs.
Yeah, eSIMs.
Yes.
The SIMs will change. Think smart cities, right? So while it's good that we're talking about this in a sense, I believe 2020 will come a bit too soon for us.
Yes.
We won't have all the nice things required to that would consume 5G. But it's good that we start to think about it, and it will be good for the industry, to be honest. The other thing to think about, talking about procurement, is that most countries across the world are thinking about procurement. I was hoping to see this in the story.
Yeah.
And where you procure from is an issue, because it does have impacts on national security, on state security. If you look at Huawei, the Chinese company, is one of the major suppliers, and the US has refused or turned down a contract for them to do that. Australia has done the same thing. Now New Zealand, Canada is reviewing. The UK seems to be the only one that hasn't
Made
shut
a
them
decision
out,
yet, yes.
because there is a worry that it could either be used for espionage, or if they drive all the equipment, it could be backdoors into it.
Because
which
of
they
the
can-
application and military grade
Absolutely,
equipment. Yes.
exactly.
We do
They
have to be
they can
cautious, don't we?
That's my point, because they can use it to shut down, provide a denial of service and shut down your country, thinking about the future where everything will be driven by
Yes.
technology and data. So
I think very quickly, I think it's important that we somehow find a way to just say, let's put a break on this. It's going so fast. I don't know about you, but for me, it's
have
just
to catch up.
yeah. No. It's just it's not about catching up. It's just unhealthy fast.
Thank you so very much. Mika
Unhealthy
very quickly on
fast.
Twitter says, only Nigeria policemen SARS look and train and behave the way they like. You can imagine how fellow civil servants kill each other. You do not say that. Please, thank you very much, Michael Obi. I refuse to read the last part. Latunji says, we still call them Boko Haram. That's why the actions surprise us. These attacks are carried out by ISWAP, he says, the ISIS arm in West Africa. The intent is different. Quickly on WhatsApp, we have this one similar tweet on Twitter. Waji is teaching us English this morning. He's from Tolu in Lagos, and I hope you learn because he's, yeah. He's Waji. Lasisi Ibrahim from Ian Paja says, signing a peace deal is not a problem, but what are the complements of the deal? For instance, a part that says parties should accept whatever results announced in 2019 election. What is the thought behind that? Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being in the studio with us at CCOG Lagos. You can find her on the socials and ask her questions, and she will not ask you to go to any other radio station.
Like I did, you saw me as you don't like it. There's like what, over 100 radio stations in Nigeria?
And Waji
pick another.
No, pick smooth. Waji is at the corporate MC on socials. Good morning. Thank you so very much. And today, Otindo Kofi, big clips. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Lagos, coming up next at 8:15, we'll talk about sports inside of the locker room. Good morning.